The world held its breath as the skies over Iran transformed overnight into a theater no one predicted. The aircraft the Pentagon had long labeled obsolete, slow, and vulnerable, the A-10 Thunderbolt II, famously nicknamed the Warhog, was flying freely over one of the most heavily defended airspaces on the planet. Operation Epic Fury had begun, and the first reality it revealed was stark. Decades of Iranian air defense investment were being dismantled in real time. This was not a story of stealth bombers or high-tech fighters leading the charge. This was the Warthog, a 1970s-era aircraft, surviving and striking where modern doctrine once said it could not. In the opening hours of the campaign, American Apaches and A-10s operated without significant interference, a development that exposed a critical truth. The sequence in which military planners send aircraft is never arbitrary. It is a direct measure of the environment's danger. Stealthiest, fastest, most survivable planes go first. The F-35s, F-22s, B-2 Spirits. Only when the airspace is suppressed and the threat diminished do slower, lower-flying platforms enter. And right now, those second-wave platforms are dominating Iranian skies. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth confirmed that Apache gunships and A-10 Warhogs were striking throughout Iranian airspace and the Strait of Hormuz, and his statements carried a chilling implication. Iran's layered defense networks, S-300 systems, Bavar 373 batteries, and integrated radar grids had been rendered ineffective. What decades of strategic planning, billions of dollars of procurement, and countless drills could not prevent, Operation Epic Fury achieved in weeks. The collapse of Iran's air defenses did not begin on February 28, 2026, with the launch of Epic Fury. It began months earlier, in June 2025, when the United States and Israel executed Operation Midnight Hammer, targeting Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities and degrading the air defense grid around Natanz and Isfahan. By December, even former Iranian leadership admitted the country's skies were exposed. A year of intelligence preparation, systematic targeting, and electronic disruption created corridors where the A-10 could operate safely, neutralizing threats with its GAU-8 Avenger 30mm cannon and precision munitions. The implications were immediate and global. The Warthog, once considered expendable in modern warfare, was now at the center of a campaign that could redefine American air operations for decades. What this signals is not simply a tactical victory. It is a strategic revelation. The skies over Iran, once a fortress designed to impose staggering costs on any intruder, are now penetrable, leaving the balance of power in the region suddenly exposed and shifting. To understand how the A-10 Warthog found itself flying unchallenged over Iran, we must trace the decades-long arc of military strategy, technological evolution, and geopolitical tension that set the stage. Iran's air defense network was never built overnight. It was the culmination of years of careful planning, international procurement, and indigenous development. Russian S-300 systems, supplemented by domestic Bavar 373 batteries, formed the backbone layered with early warning radars and command networks designed to create overlapping fields of fire. The doctrine was clear: make any American incursion so costly that the United States would be forced to rely exclusively on its most advanced stealth platforms, forcing attrition before objectives could ever be reached. For years it worked. Any aerial operation inside Iranian airspace was considered a high-risk gamble. The first cracks began to appear in mid-2025. Operation Midnight Hammer, conducted jointly by US and Israeli forces, targeted Iran's nuclear infrastructure, but did more than cripple enrichment capabilities. It exposed gaps in the defensive architecture. Airstrike reports indicated that the attacks destroyed not only physical sites but also critical nodes in radar integration and missile guidance, leaving portions of the network temporarily blind. By December 2025, Investigative reports from Forbes highlighted that Iran's air defense coverage was fragmented and increasingly unreliable. Even former President Hassan Rouhani admitted publicly that deterrence had been eroded. Iran no longer had control over its own skies and neighboring airspace. Over Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Jordan was effectively dominated by US and Israeli assets. The timeline accelerated rapidly in early 2026. Intelligence accumulation, electronic warfare preparation, and preemptive strikes laid the groundwork for Operation Epic Fury. On February 28th, stealth platforms, F-35s, B-2, Spirits, Strike, and F-22s launched the initial attacks, neutralizing hardened targets deep within Iran and creating temporary corridors of airspace suppression. Simultaneously, EA-18G Growler aircraft disrupted radar and communications networks, while space-based assets added layers of interference. By systematically disabling command links and integrating sensor blinding, the U.S. created a tactical environment where slower, more vulnerable aircraft could operate with unprecedented freedom. Major actors shaped this operation at every stage. On the U.S. side, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kind, and Central Command leadership coordinated a multi-pronged assault designed to dismantle Iran's capacity for missile production, air defense, and naval interference. Israeli intelligence contributed critical insights into Iranian missile and naval deployments. On the Iranian side, former Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and other senior commanders struggled to respond, hampered by incomplete repairs to infrastructure damaged in prior strikes and a depleted inventory of compatible missile launchers. By the opening hours of Epic Fury, the U.S. estimate indicated only around 100 operational launchers remained, scattered and largely unintegrated. The cumulative effect of this timeline is stark. Years of strategic planning by Iran were outmaneuvered not by sheer firepower alone, but by a methodical sequence of intelligence gathering, electronic warfare, and precision strikes. The result? Corridors of operational dominance that allowed the A-10 Warthog, Apache helicopters, and other platforms to operate with minimal threat. The stage was set for the unfolding campaign, one in which the assumptions of modern air warfare would be challenged, and the Warthog, once written off, would return to a central role. The opening hours of Operation Epic Fury unfolded with a precision that surprised even the most seasoned analysts. On February 28th, stealth aircraft, the F-35, B-2 Spirit, and F-22 led a coordinated strike against Iran's hardened targets, missile production sites, radar installations, and command centers. These attacks were not isolated. Each was synchronized with electronic warfare operations conducted by EA-18G Growlers, which jammed radar frequencies and disrupted communication links. Space-based surveillance and targeting assets further compounded the disruption, effectively creating corridors of airspace where slower, more vulnerable aircraft could operate without immediate threat. Within the first 24 hours, reports indicated that approximately 80% of Iran's air defense systems had been destroyed or disabled, a figure previously thought impossible for a country with decades of investment in layered defenses. From the U.S. perspective, the sequence of aircraft deployment told the story. The first wave suppressed and blinded defenses. The second wave, slower, low-flying platforms, the A-10 Warthog and Apache helicopters entered the theater with unprecedented freedom. The Warthog, equipped with its GAU-8 Avenger cannon, AGM-65 Maverick missiles, and precision-guided munitions, targeted fast-attack Iranian naval vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. Apache helicopters engaged drone swarms and provided close air support for ground operations. Intelligence assessments emphasized the significance. These aircraft are designed for environments where the enemy can no longer effectively respond. Their deployment confirmed that Iran's integrated defenses were not just weakened, they were functionally neutralized. Iranian sources painted a different picture. State media claimed that U.S. aircraft were encountering resistance, citing the downing of an A-10 near the Strait of Hormuz on April 3rd. The F-15E Strike Eagle losses, including a missing crew member, were highlighted as evidence that Iran retained pockets of operational capability. Analysts cautioned that while the overall network had been dismantled, scattered remnants, shoulder-fired missiles, isolated radar stations, and residual missile batteries remained. These fragments posed a persistent, localized threat, capable of inflicting losses but incapable of repelling the campaign as a whole. Available evidence confirms a systematic approach. Satellite imagery, combat reports, and official Pentagon briefings all indicate that U.S. forces targeted both kinetic and operational vulnerabilities. 10,000 individual targets had been struck by late March, including 29 ballistic missile sites and critical missile fuel production facilities. The destruction was not merely about immediate gains. It was future-oriented, designed to set back Iran's military capabilities for years. Former Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei was removed from command, further disorienting Iran's military hierarchy and limiting any coherent response. The Warthog's role within this structure was emblematic. Despite being a platform conceived in the 1970s, its design, armored cockpit, redundant systems, and high-volume cannon proved uniquely suited to neutralizing remaining Iranian threats, particularly fast attack boats and residual anti-aircraft systems. Armed with Mark 82 bombs, AGM-65 Maverick missiles, and air-to-air defense systems like Sidewinder missiles, the A-10 could operate both offensively and defensively in corridors cleared by stealth and electronic warfare assets. Each sortie reinforced a pattern. Iran's defenses were no longer cohesive, and the combination of intelligence, precision strikes, and layered electronic suppression had created a battlefield environment that favored U.S. air power. The competing narratives, U.S. commanders describing near-total air supremacy and Iranian media claiming localized resistance, highlight a critical uncertainty. While the overall network has been neutralized, isolated threats remain. The campaign is far from risk-free, as evidenced by the first American aircraft losses in over 2 decades. Yet the operational reality confirms what 2 former CENTCOM commanders described in the strongest terms. U.S. forces are exercising something approaching air supremacy over the region, fundamentally altering the dynamics of the conflict.